Good morning, friends. The subject of my talk this morning is Sri Ramakrishna and harmony of faiths. Now, if I ask the question, which religion has the vastest storehouse of scriptures, then the answer will be that Hinduism only has that. It is the most ancient living faith, and it has so many scriptures in it. But among those scriptures, there is one scripture which is considered very important. It is called the Bhagavad Gita. In English, the Song of God. That is, his teachings are so soothing and uplifting that the teachings can be compared to a song. It's the Bhagavad Gita. And it is also believed that among all the scriptures, the Bhagavad Gita is the most important. In adoration of Bhagavad Gita, there is a hymn, and there it is mentioned, Gita Sugita Kartavya Kimannai Shastra Vistarai. This is the Bhagavad Gita should be studied well. And if it is done, then there is no need for the study of other scriptures. That is the meaning, more or less. And in this Bhagavad Gita, we read a dialogue between a divine incarnation, Krishna, and a prince, Arjuna. There, Sri Krishna is saying to Arjuna in one place, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuthanam adharmasya tatatmanam srijamyaham. In Sanskrit, it means whenever there is decline of spirituality and rise of irreligion, then I create myself. I create myself. Yes. To revive spirituality, I create myself. But Sri Krishna was a human being. Why does he say that I create myself? As though Sri Krishna is speaking on behalf of God. As though God is speaking through Sri Krishna. Because Sri Krishna is not an ordinary person. He is a divine incarnation. According to all theistic scriptures of the world, God is omnipresent. So God is equally present everywhere, but not equally manifested everywhere. In non-living objects, God's manifestation is almost not there. But in living beings, there is manifestation of God, more manifestation. And among human beings, there is more manifestation. And there are some exceptional human beings in whom the manifestation of divinity is maximum. They are called divine incarnations. If every person, if light be divinity, then that light is present in all. So some people are 5-watt light bulbs, some are 10-watt light bulbs, some are 1000-watt light bulbs. Those who are 1000-watt light bulbs, they are called saints. And there are a few very rare people who are multi-trillion watt light bulbs. They only look like human beings but filled with divine consciousness. And these multi-trillion watt light bulbs are divine incarnations. They are divinity in human form. Divinity, as much as divinity can be manifested through human beings. So when there is decline in spirituality, then God bodies himself forth to revive spirituality. And Sri Ramakrishna, whose picture you are seeing behind me, he is also a divine incarnation. Judging by all the signs and symptoms of a divine incarnation that we have in our scriptures, he is declared to be a divine incarnation. And why did he incarnate? To revive spirituality. And particularly in his case, it looks like one of the reasons why he came down to earth was to teach us the harmony of faith. The most ancient and most reliable scripture of Hinduism is Rig Veda. There is a sentence, Ekam sadvipra bahudha vadanti. In those days also, the people believed in different deities. But it is mentioned that there is only one divinity, and that divinity is called by different names. Ekam sat vipra bahudha vadanti. Divinity is one, but sages call the same truth by different names. Sri Ramakrishna also gave this teaching. His mother tongue was Bengali, one of those languages in India. He said, Jato mat tato path. There are as many faiths as there are, so many paths are there which help us to reach the same divinity. That is the meaning. Jatamat tatapat. The religions are different faiths are only paths which lead us to divinity. And Sri Ramakrishna talked about divinity to the people who would come to see him. He would talk. And according to him, there are different paths, even in Hinduism, and they are called yogas, means of communion with divinity, yoga. And there is Raja Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, all these yogas are there, Karma Yoga, different paths. But all these paths will lead us to the same divinity. But Sri Ramakrishna taught that for this age, the path of devotion or bhakti yoga is the best path. Sri Ramakrishna, as I have told you, came to teach the harmony of faiths this time. He practiced the different disciplines which are available in Hinduism and reached the goal, the same divinity. Did he practice Christianity? Yes, he practiced Christianity also. He lived in a place called Dakshineshwar. It was a village at the time. And some rich people of the city of Calcutta had their country houses. And those country houses will be outside the city. And the country house of one very rich man named Yadu Mallik was next to the temple complex where Sri Ramakrishna lived in Dakshineshwar. So he would sometimes go to visit the country house of Yadu Mallik. And that house was a large house surrounded by beautiful garden. And Sri Ramakrishna would often go there. And the caretaker of that house also recognized Sri Ramakrishna. And when Sri Ramakrishna would go there, he would sometimes open the door of the living room. And Sri Ramakrishna would go and sit there. So one day, when he was sitting there, he saw a picture of Virgin Mary with the baby Jesus on the wall. There were other pictures also, but this picture was one of them. And then when I looked at that picture of Virgin Mary and baby Jesus, then a strange light came out from that picture and entered into Sri Ramakrishna. And then something happened to him. His faith became changed, and he could hear the devotional singing in Christian churches in his vision. He was at that time kept busy worshipping in the temple of the Divine Mother Kali, Hindu deity. But he started liking that singing in Christian churches. And he experienced the goal of Christianity at that time, in 2 or 3 days only. Then one day, while he was sitting in a grove of trees, and under a very large tree in that grove, there was some arrangement for sitting made with bricks. And Sri Ramakrishna would often go there and sit down and think of God. One day while he was there, he saw a tall and very fair person coming toward him. a bearded person. And he was very handsome, but the tip of his nose was a little flat. That he noticed. And when he saw that figure coming toward him, something inside him said, "This is Jesus Christ." This is Jesus Christ. And then Jesus Christ slowly came nearer and nearer and entered into the body of Sri Ramakrishna and became one with him, indicating that Jesus Christ was also a divine incarnation. And there was one gentleman named Govinda Roy. He was a Sufi Muslim. And Govinda Roy came in contact with Sri Ramakrishna. And Sri Ramakrishna, having associated with him, became a Muslim. And he started praying like the Muslims do. That is called Ajan, just like the Muslims. And of course he reached the goal of Islam also in 1 or 2 days. That's how he came to know that all these different faiths go to the same divinity. That's why I think he decided to give the teaching to this world. That is the main teaching. He also taught that we have to renounce anything which stands in the way of our experiencing divinity. The Holy Mother Sri Sarada Devi was his spiritual consort. She was also a divine incarnation. And a time came when Sri Ramakrishna said he was just being recognized as a divine incarnation by some people, and he came to Sri Sarada Devi and said, "Now my time come for departure from this world has come. I am like a king wearing disguise. I wanted to help the subjects, but the subjects has recognized me as a king, so I have to go back to my palace." That means he told Sri Sarada Devi that he would depart from this world. Then she said, "If you depart from this world, what shall I do?" Then Sri Ramakrishna said, "What I have done is but little, you have to do much more." And Sri Sarada Devi displayed the compassionate side of divinity. She is the mother to all. She used to say, "I am the mother of the good and mother of those who are not good." That was the time Sri Ramakrishna had passed away. That was the time when the British ruled India, and some Indians were struggling for freedom. Some of them were women also. And one such woman was arrested by the police and put in jail. And that news hurt the feelings of many Indians, because women are highly respected in India. And they are talking about this and saying what the British had done was bad. They are condemning the British. Then Sri Sarada Devi was present there. Then she said, but the British, they are also my children. She had nothing but love for the British. Motherly love. So she came to display motherly love. And Sri Ramakrishna wanted to teach the world the harmony of faith. It was the year 1893. One of his foremost disciples was Vivekananda. Sri Ramakrishna said that Vivekananda was a free soul. He was one of the 7 sages who are mentioned in Hinduism, Saptarshi. And at the request of Sri Ramakrishna, one of those sages had come down to earth. Why? To help preach the teachings of Sri Ramakrishna. And that sage who was born here was born as Narendranath Datta, and eventually he became the world famous Vivekananda. I'm saying world famous. India, of course, and you will find so many streets, etc., named after Swami Vivekananda. There is a statue of Vivekananda in Bombay, installed by the government. And the government of India named their first large ship Vivekananda. And when I visited Brazil, I saw in the city of Curitiba a street named after Vivekananda. Rua Vivekananda. That is the name of the street. He is well known. And he will be known more and more. Just as Sri Ramakrishna had predicted. The picture of Sri Ramakrishna that you are seeing behind me, that picture was taken by a photographer. In those days, not everyone had a cell phone, with the help of which they would take pictures. So some photographers were there, and their help had to be hired by paying a price for it. And one such photographer was requested to come and take a picture of Sri Ramakrishna. But he wouldn't allow this picture, any picture taken of him. And he would not even have the idea that it was his body. He could not use the word I to indicate the body. He would point to the body and say, this did that, and so on. Because he was always conscious of his divinity. So the photographer was told that only when he enters into samadhi, then he loses all outer consciousness. At that time, he could take the picture. And the photographer, and during the day and night, many times Sri Ramakrishna would enter into that state which is called samadhi. Even his heartbeats would stop when he would be in samadhi. Then again he would become conscious of the world. That would happen to Jesus Christ also. When he was in the cross, he entered into samadhi. And people thought that he had died. But he didn't die. So according to us, his resurrection was, He came out of his nirvikalpa samadhi, that's all. And so Sri Ramakrishna, when he was in samadhi, that photographer tried to take a picture of him. But as he was in samadhi, his head was drooping. So his face could not be seen well. That's why the photographer put his fingers under the chin of Sri Ramakrishna to make that head erect. And when he tried to do that, the entire body came up as though it was made of feather. And that startled him. So the camera dropped from his hand. But anyway, he picked up the camera and took this picture of Sri Ramakrishna. So the first print showed that this glass of that camera had cracked, so that mark would be visible at that time. But anyway, so this is a picture of Sri Ramakrishna in union with God or samadhi, union with divinity. And when this picture, a copy of that was given to Sri Sarada Devi. And Sri Ramakrishna saw that picture and he said, "Whose picture is this?" He was not aware of his physical form or anything. And then Sri Ramakrishna took a flower and put that in front of that picture as though he was worshipping that picture. Then the Holy Mother, Sri Sarada Devi, she thought it was a bad omen. Perhaps he would give up his body. Then Sri Ramakrishna said, "No, don't be afraid. A day will come when this picture will be worshipped in many, many homes." At that time it could not be believed. But now you go to India and you will see this picture in so many homes. Worshipped. When I was a little boy, I saw his picture in our shrine. And as days are passing, more and more people are adoring this picture. But Sri Ramakrishna said to the Sri Sarada Devi, "What I have done is but little, you have to do much more." That means she had to shower the divine compassion on everybody. And to teach the world that all different faiths lead to the same divinity, he brought Vivekananda, that one of those 7 sages. They came down to earth at his request and became Vivekananda. It was the year 1893, I just mentioned it once. And something unprecedented in history was going to take place that year in the city of Chicago in America. The first parliament of all religions, all different religions, was held that year in Chicago. Do you think Buddhist period some such gatherings would be there, but they are only of Buddhist saintly souls. But this was a special gathering. And when Vivekananda was on the in South India. He was a wandering monk at that time, and there he had a vision of Sri Ramakrishna. He saw himself standing on the coast of the Bay of Bengal, and Sri Ramakrishna was on the waves and beckoning him to go to the west. And by that time Sri Ramakrishna had acquired some admirers. Among them there were some who were kings of native states of India. During the British period there were many small native states. And some of them had been asking Vivekananda to go and attend that parliament. But Vivekananda was not invited by the organizers. Still, when after having that vision of Ramakrishna, beckoning him to go to the west, he thought that he wanted him to go to the west to attend the parliament. And then he also got the permission of Sri Sarada Devi to go abroad and do that task. That's why Vivekananda came to America. And he came by boat, ship at that time. And then he first arrived in the city of Vancouver, which is in British Columbia. And from there by train he went to Chicago. But he was not invited as a delegate. But Sri Ramakrishna made everything possible for Vivekananda. Somehow or the other, he was accepted as a delegate to the parliament. And in the parliament, when he gave his speech, he addressed all those who were present there as sisters and brothers of America. And hearing that, for a few minutes people went on applauding. That's what the report is. And he proved himself to be the best orator in the parliament. So one American newspaper wrote about him. He is an orator by divine right. And then Vivekananda was hired by a lecture bureau to give lectures to different places. And Sri Ramakrishna was always with him. Others would not be able to see him, but he would make himself visible to Vivekananda. And sometimes Vivekananda had to give 3 talks every day. And apparently he would run out of ideas. But Ramakrishna would appear before him and would tell him what to talk about. And we read that at that time he was a guest in a particular home, and the lady of that home could hear Vivekananda talking to somebody at night. She could hear the voice of the other person also. And she asked Vivekananda, "You were talking to whom last night?" And one answer Vivekananda gave, we don't find that answer anywhere. I looked for it, but it was Ramakrishna. And Ramakrishna protected Vivekananda. And it was Vivekananda who preached the harmony of religions. to the world. And once when Swami Vivekananda was in the city of Detroit, he had been invited there to speak. And he was given a cup of coffee. But some people had become envious of him. They wanted to kill him. They put poison in that cup. And then Sri Ramakrishna appeared before Vivekananda and said, "Don't drink that coffee. It has poison in it." So Sri Ramakrishna protected Vivekananda also. Why? Because he wanted the Western world to know about the harmony of faiths, I think. And Sri Ramakrishna protected him, guided him. And while in India, Vivekananda had been praying to Ramakrishna to have Nirvikalpa Samadhi, that means the highest spiritual experience that one can have. And by Sri Ramakrishna's grace, he had it once. And when he became aware of this world again, he was no ordinary person, other people would not become aware. After Samadhi, they would become one with divinity. But Vivekananda became conscious again. Then he said to Ramakrishna, "Please bless me in order that I can be in this Samadhi again and again." Ramakrishna said, "No, once is enough. When the time will come, you will get it." Then Vivekananda worked all over America. Then when he was in Thousand Island Park, he was seated under the tree. Then suddenly he got back his Nirvikalpa Samadhi. He understood that this work which Sri Ramakrishna wanted him to do, which Sri Ramakrishna would call the Divine Mother's work, that had been done by him. Then after that he went back to India. This is the story of Vivekananda. Sri Ramakrishna was the embodiment of different faiths. So, those who adore Sri Ramakrishna, when they salute him, they say in Sanskrit, "Om sthapakaya cha dharmasya sarva dharma swarupine avatara varisthaya Ramakrishnaya te namaha." That means one who is the establisher of spirituality and who is the embodiment of all religions, to that Ramakrishna, who is the greatest of all divine incarnations, we salute. I want to conclude my talk also by this salutation. Om Sthapakaya cha dharmasya sarva dharma sarupine avatara varisthaya Ramakrishnaya te namaha.